Um, let's just wait for people to jump on. And I think just before we start, we need to let people know that they can't see you because you're being a little grandpa and not be able to. Yes, we are live. Let's see if people jump on now. In that case, what I'll do is I'll just drop in a nice photo of you here. Yeah, okay. Let's see if people are jumping on. Yeah, I've got one person. So if you can hear us loud and clear, please comment so that we know that you can hear us. And I'm just trying to fix Steve's audio. Let's just check. Nope. Okay. Can you guys hear us loud and clear? All right. It's a pity, Dubs, because I'm wearing an Everton shirt. You can see that, right?
I can see it perfectly, but I'm afraid the Silver Surfer hasn't been able to work his camera.
I think there's something that you need to since you got a lot of time on your hand now, you should be learning how to do these things. Usually, I thought you were quite handy with the computer and technology.
Time is, I think it's been great, this isolation. I can listen to good music. I can read all the books I should have read, done a few podcasts like this, upset a few people with articles, but,
Sounds
who
like
cares?
sounds like you then.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. All right.
And the worst thing is I can't cough. If I cough, people will jump off.
All right, so I think we've got a couple of people on board. They're all watching live. I tell you what, let's start, and as we go along, people will jump on. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody watching so far, and I would like to officially invite Mr. Steve Darby on Sports Stories with Sasi. Hello, Mr. Steve Darby.
Good morning, Sasi. A wonderful Botac site, and the Everton shirt.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna, later on in the show as we start, I'll tell you exactly why I'm wearing this. But as you know,
Why the Botac? Why the Botac though? Because I was a skinhead when I was 15, but that was because I was absolutely petrified of being nothing else. Because you had to survive in Liverpool, so skinhead was the only way to survive. But I also found out when I had a skinhead, I looked like the FA Cup with my ears.
no, the reason for that, I'll tell you why. Every year, at the start of the year, I mean, of course, I shave my head off, or my hair off, just to give me like a fresh start and stuff like that. I've done it when I was playing, and in the last couple of years, I haven't really done it. So I thought, 30 days in isolation, we can't go anywhere. I haven't got any meetings. I'm just gonna get on shows like this. And anyway, these days I've got a face for radio, so it's not gonna really matter, right? So, and that's the reason.
Well, with a pink shirt on, yes. I mean, it's you certainly are confident of your masculinity wearing something pink.
I'll tell you why. That's a great segue for our start because you are now based in the UK. You were born in Liverpool, and your dad was a big Everton supporter, right? He was a Blue Nose, but you decided to support Liverpool, and for that reason, I wore this shirt for you.
Well, yeah, he took me. My dad was a Blue, as most of the family were, because every family is divided in Liverpool. I was born 4 streets from Anfield, if you've been, and just across Stanley Park from Goodison, so equidistant from both, really. But reality was, he took me to the '63 season, so I know all the '63 team. I used to go on a little box behind the goal, standing on a crash barrier. But I think the reason that changed me was Shankly. I can't consciously say that, but he was such an influence on people at that time. The way he handled people. That must have been the only way. Maybe 'cause I went to Anfield Road School, so every day I walked past Anfield, and I always remember I used to touch the ground.
Really?
Yes, it was a stupid thing as a kid. Past the stadium, Anfield Road, just made sure I touched it some way every day.
Is,
There and back.
is that because you harbored some hopes of playing for Liverpool?
I would have done anything to play for Liverpool. I mean, it makes me laugh when people pontificate about drugs and stuff. When I was about 16, if someone said to me, "Here's an injection, you take this and you'll be able to play for Liverpool," I'd have said, "Which arm do you want?" I mean, it's that's what it was. That's what it would have meant to me. I'd have done anything, and that's just me. I mean, virtually every kid I knew would have done anything. I managed to play in Anfield once, so like a dream came true. I touched the Anfield sign as I walked out. I kept a clean sheet. I was delighted, but that got half an achievement really. But I played against Liverpool as a kid for Tranmere, the youth teams. That we got battered. Phil Thompson was playing for them, and the pre-match talk was kick the big-nosed something, 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 as it was a technical term in those days.
Okay.
But we couldn't get near the big nose so-and-so. He had like a force field around him in the middle of midfield, and he just ran the game from there. So I played against them, got battered. But that was a dream, yeah. Didn't come true, but my career was halted by a severe lack of ability.
I was going to talk to you about that because you did play in your early days, but you're quite candid about your ability not being able to play football and transitioning into teaching. And when you look back now, is that because you didn't get proper training, or was it just purely lack of ability?
Well, I mean, I'd love to say proper training because we didn't get any. That's the truth. I was at Tranmere as on the schoolboy system and the youth system, and I always remember one game, and the ball went flying past me in the net, and I got the great advices: "You should have saved that." Well, I knew I should have saved it. I'd like to have known how, and also in pre-season, as a goalkeeper, there was two or three goalkeepers there. We still did the same cross-country runs as the other players. I happened to be a decent cross-country runner, so I was, superb athlete running wise, but it doesn't help you saving. So, and then I wanted to go full pro, and the club spoke to me. They were very good. They said, "Look, we've done a bit of research. We know you're doing your A levels in England. You're going to go to your potential to go to university. Do it because you won't make it." And I was heartbroken, but they were right. Of the youth team I played in, only one really made it. And that was only a couple of hundred league games in Division 3 and Division 4. None of them made huge careers. The only lads who made big careers from my era was David Fairclough, Phil Thompson, Terry McDermott, and the major one was Steve Coppell. When he played for England, I used to play with him, but he never got picked up till he was at university. He got picked up by Tranmere when he was older. So basically, I decided I had to. The second best option in those days was to be a PE teacher. Trained as a PE teacher, played semi-pro in like the northern leagues of England, and amazingly enough, you got more money on the Sunday league. I was getting money in, as they say, in the boot here, getting 25 quid in the 70s. So it was great money for a student. That was a week's wages to some students.
Your first stop outside of the UK was Australia. How did that come about?
Well, it was actually my first stop was Bahrain.
Oh, you went to
Uh,
Bahrain. That's right. Yeah.
yeah, I was teaching. I'd got a job straight out of college, and I thought that's it. I'll become a PE teacher. The usual stuff. Blah blah blah. Got a phone call. Do you want to go to Bahrain? I said yes. I didn't tell me how much money. I didn't ask. It happened to be about six times my present salary, so I just swam there anyway. But no, the choice was it was full time football, play a coach of a club, work with the national team when the national team went in recess, a bit like Singapore. The league went in recess when the national team was on. So, it was fantastic. And did that. Then I did what they call the English full badges. I was 24 when I got my full badge. I was told I was the third youngest ever. I can't prove that, and I don't know. I mean, but that's what I was told. And while I was on the coaching course, I got spotted, as they say, and I got a phone call from Tasmania, and they said, "Do you want to come to Tasmania?" I said, "Great, I've never been to Africa." So
That's the
I
difference, right?
checked.
That's
Yeah,
Tanzania.
slightly different, yeah. So anyway, I checked up, found out it's about 100 miles from the Antarctic. There's no further south than Tasmania, especially. So Went down there, and I always remember
Hang on.
getting
Those
off the
days, those
plane
days,
in London.
could you fly or did you have to take the ship?
Well, I wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't black and white life.
All
It
right,
was, and the
just that,
and the and
just
the
asking.
the plane didn't have propellers either.
Okay.
So I got off the plane. We should have propellers in Launceston in Tasmania, and the bloke said, and there was a mass press conference of one bloke and a cameraman. So he said to me, "Can you carry your bag because it was a sponsored bag off the club? Can you walk down the steps of the plane juggling a ball?" I said to
Wow.
him, "Major, if I could do that, I'd be at Madrid airport."
And when you landed in Tasmania, right? So what was football back then? Was it as important to the people in Australia back then? What was it like?
Well,
Just a kickabout
I
league,
thought it.
or were they serious about it?
I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be a great goalkeeper because I opened the paper. I always do wherever I go. I get a newspaper and try and get local knowledge as much as I can. And I saw Collingwood 69, Carlton 84, and I thought, what a keeper I'll be here. So because I'd never seen Aussie rules before.
Yeah,
I'd vaguely heard about it, but I didn't know it was just called football or footy.
yeah.
And so I was taken to see Penguin against Cooey, teams like this, and it was incredible. But you've got to be honest, in Tasmania, it was the second sport.
Okay.
In New South Wales, it would be the second, but to rugby league, and it was professional. I apparently was the first professional in Tassie, the first full timer.
Mm.
But in that year, a number of lads came over. And I don't know why it was just that year. A fellow called Peter Bryan, who had 200 games in Middlesbrough, he came over and played. Great player. And there was quite a few others. Jack Charlton's son played.
Hmm.
He was in our league. So it was a good league. I did a lot of pommies. But Tasmania was a very pommy state. So
When when
basically,
when you, when you say pommy means a lot of British people because obviously this part of the world people might not understand that slang.
yes, sorry, Angmo or Matsale, or
British.
yeah, or a few other words I've been called.
We'll get to that later.
Yes, that was only at Home United though, and that was by the fan club.
Really? Wow. Okay. Okay. But from there, you then found your way to Sydney, didn't you?
Yeah, ended up went from Tassie, went to Canberra to work at the AIS. Then I went to Sydney to work I'll say like National Technical Director. They're all different phrases. Basically, inside like the administration side of the game, or the football administration. Still coaching. I coached the national women's team, and I was doing some part time in the National League, goalkeeper coaching. But doing the main job because I'll be honest, it was good money as the national technical director. I learned all about politics there. Fascinating. I mean, the most important book I would have read was Machiavelli, The Prince, because that taught you all about the politics of football.
Yeah.
And anybody ever says to you that politics and football don't mix is naive. They're stupid. It happens in every dressing room, in every country. No country is spared of it. So, and it's everywhere. And I always tell younger coaches now, and sadly there's a lot of them younger than me. I always tell them, winning is political power.
Mm.
If you're winning games, you win say 3 or 4 in a row, then say, hey, look, can we have a spar for the players? Can we get better balls? Can I get more bibs? And if you lose 3 in a row, just shut up. And say nothing, because all you'll get is, oh, you're going to win, because administrators hate coaches when you're losing, because it's your fault. So, that's the key. Use the politics of the game to your advantage while you can.
I want to talk to you about that, but we'll talk to you about that when we get to the time where you actually came to Asia, because I personally feel that you're one of those coaches that really truly understood and made it, how should I put it, made it very clear and very simple, like even a layman would understand how to coach in Asia. And I've been listening to quite a few of the podcasts that you've been in and explaining to, I probably would say, British coaches or US coaches on how to coach in this part of the world. And you made it sound so simple. And actually, the fact of the matter, it is that simple, but a lot of people complicate it. We'll come to that in a bit. But I want to talk about your time in Sydney Olympic. Tell us about that, because there were a couple of good players that you worked with.
Oh, I mean, Sydney Olympic was the great training for Asia in as much that it was a madhouse. You know, Alistair Edwards was there. We signed him while I was there. I signed Abbas, of course. We actually got Abbas out of his life ban. We managed to get him away from the ban for worldwide into an Australian. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. Other players, Ned Zelic, went on to play in the Bundesliga. I signed Brett Emerton, who played in the Premier League for Blackburn. I got hammered by my president for giving Brett Emerton 35,000 Australian dollars a year.
Right.
He's 18, he's not worth it, he's a kid and all this. I met Mo about 10 years later. That's what he was earning in 4 days at Blackburn. And plus the fact I'd given him 10% of any future transfer fee. And they moaned about that. But the club got $650,000 for him when he went to a Dutch side. And that president ended up being his agent. Wow. So I learned a lot about dodging. That was my first dealing with agents. A love affair with agents I've had.
What about football then? Do you think that the Australian football back then was a bit more, I would say, you had more quality players? Because in the last decade or so, Australia football has really been struggling in terms of throwing up names like you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's realistic. I mean, I don't know if it's nostalgia or age or whatever the phrase you want to use, but I think what you've got now is a lot of super fit robots. And no one standing out, mainly because you can't get your foot on the ball, because most lads now are really great athletes, well trained, the same everywhere all over the world. To be a special player in the Premier League, my God, you've got to be special because everybody's fit. The strolling playmaker, he's gone. There's also arguments that the youth system has changed slightly. They had something called the AIS, which produced the golden generation. The Dutch came in, devoided it, they changed everything, had a curriculum, stopped things like heading and defending. This curriculum made everyone play 4-3-3, which I think is so stupid. I actually think you shouldn't play any system. You should play the principles of the game and let players learn every system available, because they're going to be pros around the world. You've got to be able to play in every system. But anyway, and that I think was a demise. In the last 10 years, I agree with you. It's become a league which is like very average, very homogenous. Some good players, but the good players as well got out.
Yep.
Tim Cahill, people like that, they escaped to Europe. And a lot of them went to Asia now as well, which you can get huge money in Asia, as you know. Not in Singapore anymore, but you used to be able to.
Yeah.
in your days, you had Iranian World Cup players and things like this.
Yeah.
So I mean, but those days, obviously, we'll talk about Singapore later. I've got lots to say about that place. All mostly good, mostly.
Next stop was Johor for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the start of Asia, and I really, really was lucky. Lucky in as much that Ron Smith from the AIS, he was at Johor FC, rang me up and said, "Look, do you fancy a 6-week contract in Johor? All you've got to do is try and keep them up." They were in Division 2 in those days, Premier League, I think it's called.
Was this the Johor FA? Yes. Was it the Johor FA or the Johor SCDC or something? They had 2 teams in Johor, didn't they?
No, 2 teams. FC was Ron Smith's team. Okay. They were doing quite well. And FA was my team.
Okay.
Which that changed into JDT eventually.
Yeah.
A different planet now, obviously.
Yeah.
But because, for example, the current president now, the Prince or the TMJ, I remember him driving around my training ground in his pet Porsche, little tiny kid's Porsche he used to have driving around because he was training the polo fields. But anyway, I got to Johor and I had 2 really, really good pros there, Darren Stewart and Milan Blagojevic. And I looked at them and I said, Darren, these lads can play. What's the matter? And he said a few truths. So I said, okay, we'll change it. I started doing things like giving them days off. And that was a shock. The administrators didn't like that. What are you doing? They should be running harder. They're losing. I said, how many are injured? He said, they're always getting injured. I said, well, that could be a reason. I said, I want the best players. So I gave them days off. We we didn't train in the afternoon because it was raining all the time. I said, we'll train in the morning. That'll make them go to bed early, so they've got to get up and get better habits and all the things you know from Home United. So anyway, we went unbeaten. We stayed up, which was good, but we also happened to win the FA Cup. I don't know how we did it. We're the first, I think, only team ever to win the FA Cup from the lower league. We played Sabbath in the final. They had Dave Rodcastle playing for them. Great player, lovely lad. And we won the FA Cup, so that gave me a 2-year extension. But where I say I was lucky was that I had a manager. Now, the manager in Asia or Southeast Asia is a unique character. They can be wonderful, as mine was, Haji Ahmed Mohammed, or they can be disasters, as a lot of coaches have found out. They can be absolute megalomaniacs. And I've known of quite a few of them as well. But so I was lucky. He said to me, look, you're the CEO on the pitch. I'll be CEO off the pitch, because he was a good businessman. He said, that's, we'll work it out from there. And it worked perfectly. Never interfered. He used to say things to me one to one. I didn't have to agree. Sometimes he was right, but he gave me the best advice I ever had. He said, "Be like bamboo." I looked at him and I thought, "What do you mean, bamboo?" He said, "Keep your principles, never break them, but bend a little bit sometimes." He said, "Because remember, you're not in England, you're in Asia," and he was spot on. I learned things there. You have to bend, and probably the best example I've had was when I was in Perak. I had Khalid Jamlis. You remember Khalid? You
Yeah,
played
yeah,
against him, I'm
flitting.
sure, yeah. He rings me up. Great lad, Khalid. I got told not to sign him. He was a bad lad. Absolute rubbish. He was a great lad. Worked hard in training. Just was a different character. But didn't matter. He was great for me. And he rang me one day and said, "I can't come training, coach." I said, "What's wrong? You're sick?" "No, I've got to go take my mum shopping." I said, "You're an international footballer. I'm paying you a fortune. You can't go shopping with your mum." He said, "Coach, you can find me, you can drop me, but my mum says I'm going shopping. I'm going shopping." And that was it. And I realised no point finding. It wasn't his fault. And another example, which you might know even more so, I had big Nanthakumar in my team. I upset a lot of people when I had Nanthakumar because I made him the highest paid player in Perak. And you weren't supposed to make Indians the highest paid players, apparently.
Really?
But yeah, well, he didn't say that, but they hinted at it. So it was a suggestion that why was he the highest paid? I said, well, he was the best. And I said, and they said, "Oh, well." I said, "Well, what about, do you mean he's international?" "Oh, yeah." I said, "Do you mean he's good in the air?" "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, go on, say what you mean," because they wouldn't say it to my face. So I made him the highest paid in pure delight anyway. But the big man rang me one day and says, "Coach, you coming to my wedding?" I said, "Oh, great." He told me the date. I said, "You can't get married. You're playing that day." And he said, "No, I've got no choice." And I said, "Nanta, I know your missus. She was a really great girl." I said, "She would understand football. And he said, "Yeah, it's nothing to do with me or her." He said, "It's the numbers. It was the family." And it was the family. The family decided the wedding date because of the numbers, the horoscope man, whoever it was.
Yeah.
And Nantha got married. None of us went to the wedding. We all went at night because we could go at night after the game. All the lads went down to his wedding and it was great, but we couldn't go. But he had no choice. So I learned that was beyond his control. So you have to start to bend. You bend your principles, bend like bamboo. Don't break. And when you say break, that would be things like match fixing. I'd never get involved in that, though I've had a few offers. But that was one. That's where my principles say no. I never got involved when the president said you have to pick somebody. I say no. I pick him. If I lose, you sack me. It's fine. I said you'll sack me anyway if we lose. Even if you pick the team, you'll still sack me. So I'm going to get sacked on my own merit. Basically the cliche: die on your feet rather than live on your knees.
Love that. Love that. I just want to take a quick break here to just acknowledge all the guys people are actually watching in. Amos Boone has tuned in. He says, "Hi, Steve. Budgie is here."
The world's smallest goalkeeper,
Yeah, exactly.
and then followed by the world's maddest goalkeeper.
Yeah, but exactly. The two of them. Subramani is watching this. Rosli Dola says hi. Justin Madhavan, thanks again for tuning in and watching.
You,
Jason Smith from the UK is also watching. There's quite a lot of people here. Just
you've
they,
got the executive kit man there,
yeah, exactly.
chief executive officer of kit.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to mention him when we get to Singapore. Mention him and Manny.
yeah, exactly.
Don't worry, Manny, I won't say the truth.
All right.
Vanita's probably listening, so I won't tell the truth.
Yeah, probably she is as well. So anyway, let's move on. Ben Tan also is joining us from Thailand. He's also watching this live as well. But I wanna then talk about the next stop for you. The next stop, you went to Vietnam, didn't you? Because everywhere I go in Vietnam, people talk about Steve Darby. They always ask me about Steve Darby because we work together at Home United. And what was your experience like in Vietnam? Because you were there in the early days when Vietnamese football was going through a rough time. You probably would have seen it more, even though you're just working with the women's team. But fast forward, they
Well,
really fixed their.
yeah, I actually went to coach the men's Olympic team, and I started off coaching the men's Olympic team, and then one day a big black limo turned up with lads in white shirts and sunglasses, got out the car, and I said, "What are they?" To me, translate. My translator was fantastic. It was about the fifth translator I'd had because none of them could speak English. That was a problem with the translator. That would have been, yeah. But this one, g'day mate, she could speak real good English. Used to wear mini skirts and high heels. Knew nothing about football, but my God, she was clever, politically clever as well. And she said to me, "Coach, you got no choice. You're getting in that car with me." And we went to see the Minister for Sport. It was a lovely bloke. He said, "You're now coaching the women's team for the SEA Games." I said, "No, no, no, I don't do that, blah, blah, blah." I'd had enough with the Matildas in Australia. You know, I preferred men's football. So he said, "Salary's the same, plus you got this winning bonus is the same." And I suddenly thought, well, you know, the winning ball, we had to win one game really, and that was to beat Thailand. We felt we weren't going to win the men's SEA Games, which we were going to win because like Singapore were good then.
Mm.
You know, they had people like Indra, Mani, AD playing for them. Indonesia was a good side with Bambang and Parario, so some good players knocking around. So I thought we ain't going to win it, you know, with Vietnam. So at the same time, my translator said in English because the other guy didn't speak English very good. She kicked me under the table, said, "Coach, it's not an option. You are coaching them, or you're on the next plane home."
All right.
So I took them, and I've got to be honest, no regrets. They were wonderful. They were super professional. They were actually professional because I saw where they were staying in the camp, and I said, "Oh, look, let me complain on your behalf. I'll get you better conditions." And they said, "Better?" He said, "Coach, it's two to a room. We've got a TV and a shower. This is paradise to what they were getting at home, you know." Because I once said, option B, you know, I said, "Hey, you're not careful, you'll be in the rice fields if you don't stop training harder." And the translator said, "Coach, that is option B here, the rice fields." And one day they took me to the rice fields
Yeah.
to see what it was like. Never go in a rice field
No.
because after 20 minutes your back hurts and you feel these things going around your feet
Oh.
because you got like, oh, so no, I'm afraid. But they were great. They were really good pros, hard working like mad. The best example was we used to we couldn't play women's teams because we beat them all because you know that was we couldn't travel because there was no money for them to travel really. But we used to play men's games. So we used to play the men's under 23s. They play one touch, we play free. Good game. It works out. That's a decent game and sides are mismatched. We used to do it at Home United with the youth team. But we used to sometimes play less talented male players like the British embassy staff.
Mm.
And we played them once and they were full of boys from hello, public school boys, not quite from where I'd come from. And then one of these public school boys whacked me, one of my players. And I said to him from the side, I said, "Mate, don't do that." "Oh, she's got to learn. She's going to be tough. She's got to learn. We'll grow up." I said, "No, that's not the reason, mate." I said, "Just don't do it." So he did it again. 5 minutes later, he's off, ankle cut to pieces, blood pouring everywhere. My captain had just gone straight in over the top and done him. And she's smiling. She's smiling as she'd done him. And I said to her after, "Good, well done, good tackle." She said, "Coach, you don't kick my players. They kick my players, I kick them." And she's always a beauty. I loved it, you know. And all his mates. The good thing was all his mates were stitching him up as well for being such an idiot, you know.
During your time in
But we
Vietnam,
got, yeah, but we got the Sea Games gold, which I gave mine away to the translator because she deserved it more than me. We didn't have one for her, so I said, "Oh, look, you can have it." But it meant so much to those girls. When they sing the national anthem, they mean it, and a lot of them are in the game still. It was just, and they keep in touch, even though some of them, still can't speak English. None of them can speak English. Then a few words. Then it's like, and that's where your translator is so important. I said to my translator once, "Tell him to hit it to the far post." Next minute, the balls are going bing, bing, into the corner flag. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "You hit it to the furthest stick." I said, "The far post, you bimbo." So I had to explain that to her.
okay.
And one last one with her, which was clever. We're in the middle of a game once, and I said, "Tell them to flipping welly it." I'll say flipping because it's live.
Yeah.
Flipping welly it.
So it was not
Yeah,
flipping, obviously.
not quite. It began with an F, but it wasn't quite flipping.
Okay.
So she's looking on her little translating machine, which she didn't usually use. I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I know what flipping is. In fact, I quite like it," but which made me crack up. She said, "But I don't know what this welly is,"
Yeah.
and that taught me you can't use slang in a foreign country. So you've got to use their slang as opposed to your slang. So if I was in Asia, I'd have to use Kelong and not match fixing. I think monkey you call circle ball kaku. Is that right?
Uh,
Kaku, or
oh,
in Malaysia, I think it's called
Kaku, yeah, you can call that, I suppose.
kaku. Yeah.
It's been,
So you learn.
mind you, it's been 20 years, so I've, since I've been also, yeah.
So you basically have to use local slang or none.
Let's talk about, the time you spent in Vietnam, football especially. You've seen it come from probably backwaters when you got there, and today they are one of the top ASEAN sites, and they've been actually challenging for honors in at the Asian level. What's your I would say take on how far they've come?
Come massively. First thing I think they did was, I won't say they eliminated corruption because that'll never happen in that country.
Yeah,
Uh, Sad, but you've only got to drive your car around at lunchtime, and the police will get you for their lunch, for their makan. So they eliminated an extent of corruption. The V League is still bent, I think, sadly, but the money that FIFA and AFC gave them, they spent it wisely. They started to have good coaching, good facilities, trained local coaches as well, which I think is very important. You've got to have local coaches, good ones and honest ones. That's the most in that country. And that started to happen. And I think you've got to remember that there's 65 million people. That's what they say officially. There's going to be more. And again, there's no option B. It's basically that, or you might get a bit of badminton here and there, but it's football and nothing else. You've been there, 5 o'clock when the work finishes. They're all out in the streets playing. The blokes, the men are still playing. It's very much like England was in the 30s and 40s. Now it'll change in some ways because the middle class will get bigger, but it's still got a massive poor or working class, whatever phrase you want to use, and they're harnessing that now. And they're getting organised. That's the key. Some good administrators there who are actually organised, which makes a massive difference. Once they get the V League sorted out, it can really boom. It can start to do as Thailand. You say Ben Tan's on there. Ben is doing a magnificent job in Thailand there because the potential in Thailand and Vietnam, to me, should leave Southeast Asia and start to join the little group of Korea, Japan, Iran. They should start to be in that group eventually. Start at the bottom of it, but they should be entering first world football, I think, those Thailand and Vietnam. Indonesia should, of course, but that's a different story altogether.
Yeah, I think in the recent times we've seen a lot of the Vietnamese players joining. They've gone to Europe. There's one player in Heerenveen. I think he's still there. There was another player that went to Belgium it was, and of course they got a couple of players who played in the J League and stuff like that. So yeah, they've
That's very important. I think you get your foreign. They don't travel well
mm,
because of language. They don't travel well because they're family oriented. Whereas I left home at 17, but and you don't miss it when you're English. You just leave home.
yeah.
But in Vietnam or in Asia in particular, it's family based, and also things like food. They miss their food.
Mm.
Which I used to tell them, that's stupid. Doesn't matter what you eat, what you get given, And I mean, so they do need. I tried to sign one, a fellow called Hong San. Did he play in the '98
Yes,
against you?
yes, Hong Son
Yeah.
was the star player, wasn't it? He was.
Oh, what a player!
Yeah.
So I actually tried to sign him
Money
for
would know
Hong.
him really well because he marked him in the final.
Oh, so he never got a kick, did he? Is he still inside Manny's pockets?
Probably still there, still lives there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. But I tried to sign Hong Son. He was a lovely lad, and I said to him, "Look, how much you on?" And I'll be honest. He said I was on 200 US a month. So I said, "Well, I can offer you a bit more than that. At Home United, a lot more than that. Really, it would have been about 10 times as much."
Yeah.
He said, "Look, coach, I'm very sorry, I can't. I'm a colonel in the army." And I laughed. I said, "You never go." He said, "I know I don't go, but I'm a colonel for life." And he said, "I've got my wedding shop." He said, that was a big business, I found out. Wedding dress shops. He owns a wedding dress shop, makes a fortune there. And he says, anyway, they won't let me because they wouldn't let him go, the army anyway. And his final word was, "But thank you very much, coach, but Juventus offered me even more than that and I couldn't go."
What?
And I thought,
Really?
Hobart Juventus, maybe, something like that. And no, it was the Juventus offered him. They'd seen him play. They'd come looking for him. He'd gone into a Pepsi challenge as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was a big, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he'd been seen, doing that, and he was offered a fortune to play for the Juventus in Italy, but couldn't go. I thought he was a bit special.
Mm,
Best player I've seen in Vietnam.
right.
There was Bao Kang, tried to sign him, couldn't get him. Kong Ving was a decent player. Huyn Duc, the big striker, you would have marked him, wouldn't you?
He's still living in my pocket.
Yeah, right. Okay. It was a big lad. Yeah, yeah. It's the size of your pockets. The size of pockets, all your money now. You'd fit in it. Yeah.
No. He, like you said, he was a great player. I think we
Yeah.
had a great time playing against each other. Let's move on. Let's move on to the time. It was 2002. You came to Home United, didn't you?
Yeah. I was at Sheffield Wednesday,
Yeah, you went to
youth
Sheffield.
coach there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was working about 70, 80 hours a week, freezing cold, absolutely numb with cold. I'm loving it because it was football, but they weren't as keen as the Malaysians. They didn't want to learn. These lads just wanted to play football. Oh, can we stop this coaching? Can we play? So it was just different. So anyway, I got a phone call from Robert Alberts,
Oh, okay.
and I'd met when I was at Johor. He said, "Look, Home United need a coach. They part company with their coach." And he said, they'd offered him, and he said, "No, I'm happy where I am." He said, "I recommended you, so would you go?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So again, I spoke to Terry Yorath, who was manager of Sheffield Wednesday, and he'd been abroad in Lebanon. He knew in Asia, and plus it was a lot more money than Sheffield Wednesday. I'll be honest.
Really?
He said, "Oh God, yeah, yeah." He said Sheffield Wednesday was poorly paid youth coaches. All youth coaches are poorly paid in England. So he basically said, "Go for it." So I went, and sunshine, working with you. What more could I ask for?
Well, I joined
So
in the last year. We'll talk more about that
yeah,
because in
yeah.
all the interviews, all the podcasts that you've been on, you really do bring up your time in Asia with a lot of fondness, in the sense that you really keep the players that you work with in very high regards. And why is that?
Well, someone said to me once, "You're a great coach." I said, "Wise man, I know that." But I basically said, "I don't think there are great coaches. I just think there are coaches with great players."
Mm.
And I summed that up as I went to see Pep Guardiola speak in Liverpool. He wasn't speaking on football. He was speaking about Catalan politics. He's a very bright lad, as you know.
Mm.
And at the end of the session, he had a question answer. And one of the questions was, why are you a great coach? And he just smiled and said, 2 words, Lionel Messi.
Mm.
He said, anyone who has Lionel Messi is a great coach.
Mm.
And that, to me, sums it up. I think you've got to be what they call a player's coach, because they're the ones who'll keep your job or get you sacked. I've seen. I remember one foreigner walking off after a game against Home United and saying to me, "Oh well, we've got rid of our coach now after that game." So it was true. They did. They got rid of him, and that goes on. We know, but it's not so much for that reason. It's I just think it's right. I mean, I've seen some coaches who live by the administrators or who live by the media. Now, I don't mind administrators and media. The two or three I've ever liked have been okay, but the rest have been like battles. But most players, I'd say 99% of players are good lads.
Mm.
I've had some I don't like. I've had some I don't like and still play. I've had some I don't like at all, mainly because I felt they've been fixing.
Mm.
But it's hard to prove. As I say, I can't name names on here because you'd get sued, not me.
Yeah.
So, but there are some I just don't like, and they're usually I don't like the ones who are selfish, But what I often, when I speak to teams before I start, I do something called my job, and one of my things is I say I will have favourites, and they look at you because you're supposed to say you won't have any favourites. I say no, I will have favourites. I'll have the ones who work hard, who come on time, who train hard, who play for the team, who are not selfish. They'll be my favourites. And I've got to be honest, when I was at Home United, I will tell you this straight, honestly, publicly, I said it before, it was the best club team I've ever had on and off the pitch. And off the pitch is very important.
Mm.
You can't survive long on the pitch if there's battles off the pitch. And that's where I was very lucky.
So you came to a club where, when we were there in 1999 till up to 2001, back then Home United or Police, they just transitioned on to Home United. That year in 99, we won the league. And then 2 subsequent seasons, we won the cup and we won the 2 cups. And after that, they gone off the boil a little bit. And you came there to fix things for Home United. And very quickly, you won the players over, because in the last year and probably in the last 6 months, I had the opportunity to work with you. But one of the things that being there in that dressing room with the players, one of the things that was very, very evident, that every player, the one that plays, the one that's on the bench, the management, the kit man, even like up to Rosalie, everybody kind of really loved you. Was it important for you to be liked by everyone?
No, that wasn't a factor to be liked. I just felt if you can create an atmosphere that is good for the players to work in, they want to come to work because it is work. Let's be honest, going every day is work, and you're on pressure. Because if you lose your contract, if you lose your money, you might not be able to pay your mortgage, and you've got kids, things like this. So it is work. So I thought, well, why not enjoy work? I used to like going to work, I'll be honest, I eliminated a couple of people I felt weren't right quietly, not publicly. Didn't want to humiliate anyone publicly.
Yep.
Just quietly eliminated people. Listen to people who are trusted. And I'll be dead honest here. You have to have leaders in the dressing room, and I had 2, Manny and Adi. I didn't pick them as leaders. Leaders picked themselves. So I never had a problem in the 3 years there in the dressing room because I had those 2 there sorting things out for me. I don't know how they did it, never asked, but it happened. And I also had good foreigners, because foreigners can be the pain. Now, I was lucky. I had Egmar, ultimate pro. I had the Thai boys who, again, great pros. You couldn't ask them more than Suti, Chai, Anorak. And, of course, I had Pez, who was in that Perez, absolute nutcase in his own right. But if you got Perez on side, he would do anything. I always remember coming to see Perez. He was sulking when he got there. He'd been asked to play wide right, and that meant run. I said, Perez, I don't want you to run. I want you to play like a number 10 behind the front 2. Don't want you to run. Just play. He never stopped running after that. Because he took. And then I had some idiot administrator say to me, "Oh, Perez is too slow." I said, "Yeah, he's slow." I said, "But if he wasn't slow, you'd be watching him on telly playing in Europe."
Yeah.
I said, "Because he's got everything else. He could see things. He could do a pass. He could score. I said, but he ain't got pace. And I said, he's got to stand still and play. And the others have got to do the running for him. But, I said, if this bloke didn't understand it, he just thought, you're slow. But then again, he was an administrator, so who cares?
What was your highlight, would you say, during your time in Home United?
Oh, well, we had 3 cup finals in a row.
Mm.
I mean, and you talk about goal scorers.
Mm.
We had Indra. Now, Indra won 2 of those cup finals by scoring. Indra used to score important goals. I mean, it was ridiculous that people, I'll be honest, twice I'd nearly subbed him in the finals.
Really? Okay.
And what does he do? Bang, winning goal. And he used to score at the highest level regularly. So he's got, we won the league, we won the double, we got to the AFC semi-final, and the highlight could have been some of the away trips, but they were good. But you could say there was like different things. 2 things really sort of always struck me. One was we were winning about 7-0 one game, and the other team got a breakaway. And suddenly I looked, and there was 8 of the team running back to stop the breakaway. And I thought, well, if we'd got beat 7-1, it wouldn't have mattered. But it mattered. These lads were running back, and it mattered to them. That was important. And one of the funny ones was I got fined for that, calling the beep test stupid, which it was, and it still is. But and they can't find me now. But anyway, I want my money back because they've since stopped it.
Yeah, they have.
So I blame Ben. I don't blame Ben Tan. He was there then, but I did still got fined £500. I blame Jose for putting it in the paper, Jose Raymond.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we had the beep test. Now, Indra could not run more than 10 meters.
Mm-hmm.
He was like lightning over 10 meters. He could not run. Now, you've got to be realistic. I got called off for saying this. It's a genetic or a racial test. Indian lads could run all day. You know that. It's got they've got fast twitch, slow twitch fibers. They run all day. The Malay boys tend to be quick. Fast twitch fibers struggle a wee bit on long distances. Most of them did. Indra was particular. I don't think he had any fibers. Indra, no, he had no slow twitch fibers.
Yeah.
So I spoke to this little suit on the side, and he was all there with his pen and his paper, ticking the boys off. He's doing it in a gym, and he said to me, "No, if he doesn't pass, any of them don't pass, they don't get the license to play." I said, "Okay." So near the end, suddenly we saw Siva Kumar, and Manny, who could run a fair bit. They carried Indra.
Wow.
By the shoulders, and they carried him up and down the last few till he got through. And the little suit was steam coming out of his ears. I said, "Where does it say you can't be carried?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Is it in the rules? Have a look." Because I'd made sure before. And he's looking through the rules. I said, "Hey, come on, you're Singaporean. You've got to go by the rules. It doesn't say you can't be carried." So Siva and Manny carried Indra through the beep test, and he went on and scored scored a few hundred goals. So how can you leave someone out because of a beep test? Madness. But the little things like that mattered. And you talk about kitman. Kitmen are wonderful people all over the world. There's no rules. There's no training. You're born a kitman, and you'll die a kitman. You know what I mean? Because they're different. At Kalantan, Perak, at Johor FA, I was a kitman because we didn't have it in those days. But as Rosley, now, first cup final we had. As a coach, what do you say to make people want to play? What can you say that gets people up for the game? Before the game. And I thought they've heard it all before off me. So I whispered to Rosley the night before, "You're giving the pre-match speech."
Wow.
And as you know, put it this way, Rosley is a Malay, a dark-skinned Malay. He went white.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
So I said, "You're going to do it." "Oh, I can't, coach. I can't say it." "Rosley, they love you. Do it." So we got to the dressing room at Jalan Besar. We're sitting in Jalan Besar. The lads expecting the cliches, the usual stuff, do it for your family, do blah, blah, all coming from me. And I said, "Right, I've managed to bring in a special guest." Maybe they were thinking it was Alex Ferguson or somebody, or Lee Kuan Yew even, whatever it was. I said, "This fella matters to this club. I want him to give the speech." And Ros gave the speech. And I'm not joking. if they'd have locked us in, the lads would have ran through the wall for him.
Wow.
That's how how good it was, and because they respected him, of course, but they loved him as well because he would do anything for anybody, and just because that was him and Francis, who sadly passed away.
Yep.
Francis Thomas was his sidekick. Another lovely lad who was well respected. So it became like a family. We used to meet after training, have roti, have Tay Tarik, play cards. I mean, some of them never went home, I don't think. They used to, because we used to train in the morning, as you know. I think that was important. Let you go free. In the afternoon, most players had a kip or went. Siva Kumar went and made his 15th million, selling insurance. But what has been good as well about some of these lads, most of them have stayed in the game and have gone on to become coaches in some way. Like Adil, I've got to be honest, Adil was shy and quiet when he was at the team. Good player, but you wouldn't have said he was going to be a coach. But he has done fantastically well with Kedah. Home United and Kedah. I'm really delighted for him because he was a great lad, but obviously he was taking it all in, whatever and he's done well. And even Fahmi Abdullah's become a coach, but not a football, sadly. It was kickboxing. But I had Fahmi call me one day and say, Coach, he must have been about 40 then. I realise now what you were saying to me. It makes sense. He says, I'm saying it to my lads.
Only at 40.
Yeah, only at 40. It took in, because he had talent. The lad had talent.
Yeah.
He just didn't know which way to direct it. But we occasionally directed him, and he did well for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, we only had 16 players because, again, lucky, I had a CEO, David Conceição, or manager, they called him, and he used to deal with the salary cap. And I'll be honest, I tried to cheat. I said, look, because Perez always wanted more money. You knew that. Everyone knew Perez. Oh, coach, I want this, I want that, I want more money. Okay, Perez, yeah. So I said to David, can I employ, because I wasn't in the salary cap, can I employ Perez's wife as my maid? And then she give her the money. She hasn't got to come. She could give her the money. She gives to Pez. Pez is happy.
Yeah.
No, David wouldn't do it because he was petrified about Home United being the correct team and all. So we never cheated. So we were actually about $5 under the salary cap. But I decided to have 16 players plus 3 kids who could run. And some of the 3 kids who could run went on to be good players. Imran Sahib, started off as an athlete, ended up a good player. But because he had good pros around him, that's where I felt, that's where I tried to sign Kyril Amri when he was 16. When I say sign him, he was with us, and I wanted to put him in the first team squad. And the technical director at the time, Yen, a Danish guy, I think it was, Yen, said, you can't do that.
Yeah.
He's got to come to the Young Lions.
Yeah.
I said, he's going to be sitting with Egmar, with Surachai, with Manny, Adi. He'll learn to be a pro. And Kyril came on to be a good player, don't get me wrong, but I think he could have been better if he'd come to Home United. He'd have got games. I wouldn't have just, because one of the things we did with David at Home United, he said to keep players happy, I used to use all 3 subs all the time.
I know that. I know that, yeah.
Yeah, because you got your bonus.
You got your bonus, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I used to say to David, look, 2 subs will be tactical, 3 will be tactical if I have to. But I said the 3rd sub, I'll bring someone on the pitch for a minute or so just to get the bonus. I'll try and rotate that. It might be a kid, because if it was $100 bonus, that's a lot to an NS kid. Yeah. So we tried to give them 5 minutes. If we were winning 3 or 4-0, yeah, we could do it. We never got beat a lot, so it was all right. So we tried to rotate the system where all 16 players got the bonus. They knew they were being looked after, which I think is important because it is your living. You got to make people feel important.
I want to also take the opportunity to thank you because you allowed me to come into the Home United side towards the end of my career because I had just left Tampines and I was basically they broke my contract and I was a little bit devastated in the sense that I couldn't end my career the way I wanted it. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you because you allowed me to come and finish my career on my own terms. So Let's put it officially here. Thank you so much, Dubs, for that.
Well, it cost you a fortune. I'm still driving a Mercedes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Paying your pension
I'll
fund.
I'll be honest. It wasn't a sympathy job. I can tell you that now because I liked older players, and you were certainly old. So I liked having a blend of young kids who could run all day and older players who could bring on. Now, I knew you weren't going to be 90 minutes every game, but I knew that sometimes Manny and Eddie would need a rest or got kicked. You could come on and do that. If I needed a big man up front, you could bring your shoulder on and get up front for us, So, and that's how we used to do it. I mean, it's like Amos. Amos is listening.
Yeah,
I said to
I
Amos,
never understood that. Why sign him of all goalkeepers?
well, I like big goalkeepers. Yeah, no, I like to look my goalkeepers in the chest, not the eye. Yeah, but we went for the salary cap, and I had a goalkeeper, but you need a second goalkeeper. Now, Amos was a good goalkeeper, no matter what people say,
Yep.
but he was a good goalkeeper. But we had no money. But Amos, as you know, is an entrepreneur, was making millions off the pitch. And I said, Amos, I haven't got much money, but I'll do you a deal. You come and be number 2. You don't have to train. You can train when you want to. I'll take you on the away trips abroad to Asia so you can travel the world because he liked traveling, things like this. I think he's the king of Korea, isn't he? Is he still doing that?
Yeah, still. Yeah.
But so we had Amos. Now I gave Amos an option of not training. He never missed a session. So, and he didn't get paid much because that suited him to be treated well as a person, which he was, respected as a goal. He played games as well because I wanted to make sure he kept in, never let us down on the pitch, never let us down off the pitch. So that was important. By treating somebody well off the pitch, you'll get it back on the pitch.
Let's move on, Dubs. I think we are fast approaching an hour here. We try to keep this seat by an hour.
I wanted to tell you why I left.
Yeah, go on. Tell us. People want to know.
Yeah, very simple. End of my contract. For the president, it was great. I had 2 great presidents, Tamboon and I can't remember the second one, but he was a great president, honestly.
Tamboon what? Tamboon what was the champ?
He was the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, he was good as well, great bloke. He said to me, "You've got to win something." Oh. Because home United, you have to win something. I said, oh, okay, fair enough. We won the cup, so I could have had my contract renewed. But then he got changed as president, and they brought a new guy in who then went and then removed David Conceição, the manager. And they brought in a manager who I think felt he was Alec Ferguson because he started to do things like he ruined the bubble. He started telling players, he told one player, "You're not signing next year." He told other players that I'm getting rid of this coach. We were still in the cup final. We were still, still playing. This was in season. They made this decision. So I suggested to him not to do that in my own way. So he wasn't very happy. I said, "You don't have to be happy. Just don't speak to me until I've left." So he didn't speak to me, which was fine. Let the team run itself as it was been doing, for the last 3 years. But it changed. I mean, it was really funny because players talk. He told me who the next coach was going to be. I was going to be Zolt Buks. It was a great lad. I knew him.
Yeah.
So Zolt came to Singapore. I felt so sorry for him. So I said, "Oh, Zolt, come training with the lad. You're taking over next year."
Yeah.
Oh, you should have seen this new manager's face. He was gutted that I knew and that I'd invited him onto the pitch. But I mean, that's where we had a tight bubble, and this fella exploded the bubble. Similar, there was one administrator I didn't get on with. He racially abused you. That was one reason. And the second one was he told Ekmar's wife that Ekmar should be dropped, sent back to Brazil. Fancy doing that to a player, telling his wife. So I remember he came onto the pitch one day and I said, "Perhaps you should get off the pitch." In a similar phrase like that.
Yeah.
And he got upset. "You can't speak to me like that." I said, "Well, I can because I just have." And the president called me in and said, "Did you say this to this community member?" I said, "Yes." Why? I told him. Never said another word to me about it. It was great. Backed me to the hilt, the president. What Li Hang Shui? Oh, I'm getting done to drive me mad. This can't. Someone should ring in and say who was my president. It's terrible because he gave me a shirt and on the back he said, "What name do you want on?" And then I got on "Must Win"
Oh yeah,
because that's all.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen
yeah,
that. That's your profile picture, isn't it?
yeah. Because he keeps say to me every week, "We must win this game." I said, "We must win the game according to you." But he was okay. He was a good lad.
All right, let's move on to your career next. You ended up being the assistant coach of Thailand alongside Bryan Robson. How did that opportunity?
Yeah, I'd gone to Perak for 3 years. Good. I was lucky there again. I didn't have a manager. It was even better. Yeah, So, but Perak 3 years is really good. Only got ruined because we were an UMNO team, and Paz got power, and the Paz, wonderful people, stopped paying the lads,
All right.
stopped paying me as well.
Okay.
I went to the Prime Minister of the state, the Mentary Bazaar, and said, "You're meant to be looking after people. You can't not pay your players. Oh, they should be playing for the honour of playing for the club."
Yeah.
I said, "Are you Mentary Bazaar for honour?" So I knew my contract was up then anyway. Yeah. You don't say that to the Mentary Bazaar,
Yeah.
apparently. Uh,
We leave it at that, right?
I, Yeah, so I was due to leave, and I was walking along the beachfront in Lebanon with the Perak team. We were playing in the AFC Cup. Uh, I mean, that was a story. I only had 14 players
You there?
who were broke. 7 committee men turned up, flew first class, business class to Lebanon, and we never saw them. They went shopping in Damascus and things like this. Though we did get our revenge. They came to watch the last training session. So they were all sitting in the coach's box, the empty stadium. So I got amateur all over, the captain, who was good, like Keita Manju, people like this. I said, right, come on. And we got all the balls in front of the dugout. I got the lads, I said, hammer them. And the lads pinged all the balls at these committee men, and I said, oh, just part of training. You love being here, don't you? And because they couldn't say anything. So I knew it was gone anyway. So I'd got a call from a voice on the phone saying, all right, lads, do you want to come to Thailand? I said, who's this? It's Reedy. That was Peter Reid. That was my normal accent, by the way, the Scouse accent. So Peter Reid said to me, I've heard you speak lots of languages. I said, oh, yeah. I'd say anything, to get the job. Do you want to come to Thailand and be my coach? I'll be the manager. You be the coach, because that's how the English system works. I said, not a problem. And I went there he said to me, you're fluent Thai, aren't you? I said, well, that was one of the languages I couldn't speak, actually. I said, but I know 3 great players. I said, oh, that's all that matters anyway. We'll sort it out. And the first thing I did when we got the squad, someone else had chosen the squad for us because that was, how Asia works. I said, there's no Sutty. I said, and he looked at me like Sutty and Sweep from, who's this Sutty? I said, wait till you see him. And I rang Sutty, got him into the squad, and it was like a breath of fresh air coming in. He just lifted the whole place, because of the way he is, his character, and a great player, but his character. And we got Sutty in. I got a goalkeeper who was above 5'3". All the goalkeepers were about Amos's height. So I said, look, there's one called Boy who's 6'4". Where is he? The goalkeeper coach didn't like him. I said, he's the best. Get him in. We got him in. Then we got Kosin in. The bloke who's got an alphabet on the back of his shirt. Yeah. Another great character. So I had a year with Reedy, then he left, sadly. And then I had 2 years with Robbo. Both top blokes. Football men to the hilt. Loved the game. Players respected them and loved them. They took it seriously. They didn't come out as your arrogant colonials, which, let's be honest, we've seen some of the coaches, pommies, angmos, whatever you want to call them. They come out, we're going to do it this way. You're not going to do it this way. You're going to do it the correct way. You're going to listen to local people. You're going to adapt, and you're going to do what's best. They did that. They listened. They worked together. 2 great blokes. I'm very, delighted to have worked with them.
I just got a text message or a comment on Periscope. Somebody's watching it. Bahas Bola, which is actually a Twitter handle from Malaysia. They said, hey, Sasi, I just came on. Have you guys passed the period where Steve was at Kelantan? I thought I was just getting to it.
Well, did you blink and miss it? Because it wasn't very long.
No, no, exactly. But what I want to do, Dubs, because we've just passed 1 hour now, I want to
Okay.
focus in on your time at Mumbai City FC with the ISL, because that was another great experience for you, because you worked with a world class striker there, didn't you?
Oh, I mean, I'd been to India in four different reasons. Media, worked for one state government, Manipur, wonderful place. I'd worked with Mohan Bagan in Calcutta. My God, that was an education. If you talk about a club different to Home United, that was Mohan Bagan. Like that's a whole hour on its own. Got offered Mumbai, ISL, different class. That was a bit like Home United, superbly organised, great. Though again, Asian philosophy, I hate that word philosophy though. Asian way, president picked the team. He gives us a call and says, "I've got a player for you, Nicholas Anelka." I went, "Oh no," because he'd just been banned for England for 4 weeks
Yeah.
for some sign on his arm or something,
Yep.
and all the track record was terrible. And Reedy went, because I was with Peter Reid as well. Reedy was there with me, and he said, "Don't worry." He rang up Sam Allardyce and said, "What's he like?" Sam Allardyce said, "Don't worry," and he was absolutely right. He was super professional, humble, devout Muslim. Which, not a problem. But he was sincere about his beliefs. Looked after the Indian boys on the quiet. It was well paid. Good luck to him.
Hmm.
But if you said be there 9 o'clock, he was there at 10 to. If you said wear pink socks, he'd wear pink socks. And one day he said to me, "Coach, can you do some shooting practice with me?" I think he nearly killed three goalkeepers because he didn't miss. Because the one fault with the ISL was you couldn't train properly because there was no training grounds in Mumbai. There's just literally not because we couldn't get one, just there wasn't any. So we trained on this crap school pitch, and there he was pinging the ball, top corner, bottom corner. But great lad, and it taught me that the power of the media. The media had dictated my opinion to what it was the reality. And it confirmed to me that the myth and the reality are two different things. Often done by the media, and it's getting worse with social media.
And of course, like I said, you had a great time there, and so again, we've got another message, yeah, from Bas Bola again. It certainly wasn't that long, which had me disappointed. What happened? Spill it, haha. So they probably want to know more about Klanta.
Yeah, Kelantan was great. Let's be honest. I mean, Chansri Anwar, good lad. I got on well with him, even though people said he was mad. He sacked me on Facebook. I found out I was sacked on Facebook. We were third in the league. We lost, I think, 2 games in the whole season. But the power of the social media, I'd upset a few lads on social media that had gone on and on. And I'll be honest, the bubble wasn't working in terms of the play. I had a couple of players who I felt weren't honest, shall we say. And I told the president and I had another manager as well. I told this manager, "Look, these lads are not honest for various reasons." And they backed the players over me. So it was never going to work. But met some fantastic people in Kelantan. They love the game. It could have been great. You know, uh, the other thing we did, we'd also lost a lot of our players. They had a great side, and they lost a lot of players to Johor, to Pahang, who basically quadrupled the salary. Indra Putra, he came to me and said, "Coach, they've offered me 10 times my salary at Pahang." I said, "Why are you bothering talking to me?" I said, "Mate, you've got a life, you've got a family, go. You've got to go." I fully respected him, respected him for coming to tell me. I said, "But I've got to go." That's no problem, mate. So we lost a lot of players. I worked with some good ones. Shauki, the Egyptian, what a good professional he was. I'd love to have had him at Home United. He'd have been one of the best players ever to hit Singapore. He had 70 caps for Egypt, had scored against Brazil. But again, another humble, good, honest pro. Where you had some of the cheats in this team, this squad, who I couldn't get rid of. They were cheating, coming late for training. He was never late. He worked hard, so it was different. And I had another Perez. I had Gada. who again was like Perez, absolute madman, lunatic, but could play. As long as you handled him well, he was all right. As long as you realised that there was only one world, and that was Gadda's world, that was no problem. It worked all right. But others I had problems with because I didn't think they were working for the team. So that's how it ended. Ended on Facebook.
All right, Dabs, I think we've just crossed the 1 hour, almost 10 minutes now. Plenty of experience that you've got. I want to maybe just end off. There's someone, Maza Ahmad, just been watching from India. He just asked a question here. He just posted a question here. Your favorite Indian player during your time at Mumbai? He wants to know that.
At Mumbai, Indian player.
Yeah.
Goalkeeper. Again, absolute nutcase.
Yeah.
Subrata Paul. There's a lad who, if you did a PhD on goalkeeping, he would be the PhD. Budgie would have loved him if Budgie's still listening.
He's probably.
He trained like a madman. He took everything so seriously. He had about 27 pairs of gloves, 15 pairs of. He used to bring a huge bag to train in and to the games. His set pieces, he had every single player. He hated letting any goals in. He was great. Absolutely, I really liked him. We had a good fullback called Deepak. Good, honest lad. I didn't get to see the best of Chetri, I'll be honest, because he was always injured. Which, because that's what happens a lot in India. They play the players into the ground. They were just non-stop. When I went to Mohammedan, we didn't have a physio. And I said to them, how many players get injured? Oh, the players are stupid. They're always injured here. I said, well, let's get a physio, eh? We might stop that, And it worked, funny enough, but they didn't see that. Yeah. The physio was happy, ended up marrying an Indian girl. He was an English lad. He's now happily married in England with an Indian girl. Right. So it worked for him. Yeah.
All right, Dubs. I think, thank you so much. It's still early morning for you in the UK. So what have you been up to before I let you go? What have you been up to lately? Can we see you back in Asia?
You never say never in football, ever. I've had a couple of offers recently, not since the virus, obviously. I've had a few offers to get the virus, I'm sure. But I've had a couple of offers to go, mainly to Indonesia, to be honest. And I would go, but the bottom line is I came back to England because my mum is 88. You got to do the right thing sometime. My daughter's the little girl used to wander around. She was born in Singapore. So she's now 15. Her school is now important, English exam system to get into uni. So once it gets sorted out, that area, I would certainly go back. I'd go back to Home United, but I'd take as long as I could choose my own administration team. I'd have to choose though. I'd learn now, and I'd go in so I could choose the squad. I sort of learned never go into a club where you're last in, which I did at Kelantan and I did at Mohanbagan. And that's a mistake because you are then not in control of your destiny.
All right, Steve. Thank you so much again for your time. I wish you all the best and hopefully we'll see you in this part of the world pretty soon.
Inshallah.
All right. I have another show that I do on the weekend. It's a radio show on CNA 938. So if you want this kind of interviews, I do a lot of that. Tune in to Channel News Asia. It's called Sports Talk Saturday and Sunday, CNA 938. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone who's also participated and put in all your comments and stuff that I absolutely love it. We keep going with this series until, of course, obviously this virus, we can all get on with our lives. I've got a really interesting guest on Friday, so stay tuned for that. That'll be a really interesting conversation as well. Thank you so much. This is Sasi Kumar signing off for Sports Stories with Sasi. Thank you.